Russian, on this channel of mine in the past I've already talked quite a lot about how I dislike Russian television, Russian TV propaganda, and also Russian TV hosts in particular. I mean, it's pretty much to be expected. Russian TV lies all the time, they change their narrative constantly. Russian TV is just pretty toxic overall, you know, we have hosts saying that we should nuke the West essentially.
Россия – единственная страна в мире, которая реально способна превратить США в радиоактивный пепел.
Some of these Russian TV hosts who just talk about Ukraine and America being bad all day, some of them go as far as to physically attack foreign guests that are present in the studio.
Нет, я прошу! Артём, я прошу тебя!
Ты думаешь, я не
Артём,
могу, Майк? Ты чё меня провоцируешь, друг мой?
These people don't exactly have the greatest manners ever, and honestly, a ton of Russian TV people are just complete grifters who change their opinion and just keep spouting whatever that is told to them from up above. I mean, for example, like the legendary Russian TV propagandist Vladimir Solovyov, who actually said this in 2013.
Никакой войны России с Украиной никогда не будет, потому что любой человек, который на полном серьезе попытается осуществить такого рода акт, является преступником, притом я не могу себе представить, какого размера. В Украине живут братские люди, война с которыми является самым страшным преступлением, которое все может только придумать. Не надо кричать «Крым наш», надо просто сделать так, чтобы жизнь в нашей стране была настолько привлекательной, всем захотелось жить с нами в мире и идти к нам.
And yes, of course, having said that, just a year after all of this, Vladimir Solovyov was celebrating Crimea returning back to his homeland, and right now he's one of the biggest supporters of ZV Goida and Russia's special military operation, right? However, a lot of those people that I just mentioned to you guys are pretty much, yes, they are talking heads, they're propaganda pundits, but they do have a bit of their own opinion there, and they're not just presenting news. However, what if I told you guys that even TV news anchormen in Russia are absolutely insane? And that a lot of the time their insanity goes further than that of your average Z propaganda speaker. Hey there people, it is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian, and in today's video, I would like to talk about Russia's #1 most famous TV anchorman, or should I say anchorwoman, Ekaterina Andreeva, who has actually been working as a news presenter on Russia's main, most popular, most viewed channel, Первый канал or First Channel, since the year of 1997, and and I want to talk a bit about her insanity and how she's essentially become a symbol of Russian propaganda and the Russian state, almost as much as Vladimir Putin himself at this point. So, let me introduce you. Who is Ekaterina Andreeva? Ekaterina Andreeva was either born in 1961 or 1965 in Moscow. Yes, her real birth date is not even known. This is already insane. She's essentially started working in Russian television around the collapse of the Soviet Union, so in the early 90s. And 1997 was the first time when Ekaterina Andreeva hosted the news on Первый канал, which was known as ORT at the time, but essentially it is the most popular and most watched channel in Russia, kind of like the Russian BBC, and throughout this entire time of Vladimir Putin's life, it's obviously become the main tool of Russian propaganda. So yes guys, once again, let's just take that in for a second. This lady here, Ekaterina Andreeva, has been the host of the main news broadcast in the entirety of Russia for 27 years now. Okay?
Хотим предупредить вас, что в последующих сериях многих постоянных героев будут играть другие актеры, но в роли главной героини вы увидите всю ту же полюбившуюся вам Веронику Кастро.
So yes, she was a young attractive lady of an age of 30 to 35 when she first started anchoring for Russia's main news show, and she has been the face of Russian propaganda and Russian news, and she has been the same face staring at Russians from the screen for 27 years now, and right now in 2024 she's 68 years old and she's still the main most famous and most popular TV news anchor on Russian television on the First Channel. Is that normal? Because look, I understand that happens in other countries as well. There's news anchors and journalists and so on who have careers that span decades, you know, Bill O'Reilly, Anderson Cooper, Megyn Kelly, like whatever. Even Tucker Carlson, right? You have these people who have been working for decades and so on, but I think what is happening with Ekaterina Andreeva and how she's been the host of the exact same news program for 30 years now, it is kind of not normal. You guys know how Vladimir Putin, when he first came into power in 1999, he was like a new, young, promising, pro-Western leader and everything. And people looked at this guy and they were like, wow, this is a young, you know, lad who probably has bright ideas, who's gonna lead us to a great future. And somehow, guys, 30 years later, we now have the same exact 72-year-old man who is not young anymore in the slightest in power, right? I mean, at this point, guys, this lady, Ekaterina Andreeva, in herself is kind of a Putin too. Because she's been in the same position of power for 30 fucking years, and we just see her get older, more insane and less attractive. I'm sorry, I don't want to be misogynistic, but attractiveness plays a role when we choose an anchorman for news, right? And Ekaterina Andreeva was attractive 30 years ago, yes. Are there really no other well-spoken, attractive young Russian ladies out there that could replace her? Yes, there are. There's a fucking million. And also, are there a billion young, capable guys who could replace, the man in a high castle up there, Mr. P? Perhaps, but we will never find it out because these people are never letting go. And they will grip onto their seat until they fucking If you know a thing or two about Russia, it's pretty obvious that Russia has changed its course and ideology a couple of times by now, and that is essentially my problem with Ekaterina Andreeva. Just as she was staring at the screen and saying that Russia possibly joining NATO and European Union is good in 2003, now she's staring at the screen in 2024 and talking about how we need to nuke Ukraine, you know? And it's nothing to her. This is essentially what happens when you become part of the Russian elite. And if you guys are gonna ask me the question of what she could do instead, well, we actually do have a couple of recent examples of Russian TV news presenters or people who worked in the Russian news quitting their job because they couldn't really work in that propaganda system anymore and actually speaking out about it and telling what it's really like. For example, a lot of you probably heard about the case of Marina Ovsyannikova. She actually worked as an editor on this news show, the exact same that Ekaterina Andreeva is an anchor at. And not long after the start of the war in Ukraine, on 14th March of 2022, Maria Ovsyannikova went into the studio right behind Ekaterina Andreeva with a huge banner saying, no war, stop the war, don't believe propaganda, they're lying to you here, Russians against war. So she essentially went out with an anti-war poster, an anti-war protest banner, and showed it live on air in front of millions of viewers on Russian TV. So pretty cool move. She was obviously immediately fired and was actually under trial, but she actually managed to escape Russia and is currently, as far as I understand, living in Europe or something. She's kind of a meme in herself, she does post a lot of cringe, but once again, her heart was in the right place. She did work on Russian TV for like 10 years before that, so once again, morality is debatable there, but she did take that step, she did protest, and she did throw, you know, everything she had away, her life away, in order to try and be truthful, in order to not be like Ekaterina Andreeva. And there are also other examples. Farida Kurbangaleyeva was a news anchor and a TV presenter and a journalist on the channel Rossiya-1, which is essentially Russia's second biggest channel. Also very much a place that spreads Russian propaganda. And in 2014, after the annexation of Crimea and, you know, Donetsk and Luhansk, that whole shitstorm, she actually left this channel and she left the news program because she could no longer work there because she didn't like spewing garbage about Ukraine 24/7, essentially. And after the invasion of Ukraine in 2022, she actually left Russia, spoke out against it, and currently she lives in Europe once again. And apparently she has also recently been not convicted of being essentially an extremist terrorist and, you know, discrediting the Russian armed forces and all so on. So she's essentially like a persona non grata in Russia, she cannot come back. Same exact thing is pretty much true for Marina Ovsyannikova. So yes, there actually are other women in Russian TV who do have some sort of values and who actually did quit their jobs because they could not, you know, feel okay with themselves while they're, you know, partaking in all of this. So Ekaterina Andreeva is an absolute grifter pretty much with no values who once again has been the face of Russian TV for 30 years now. And I'm tired of her fucking face. We need new faces, okay? So anyway, now that we know about the situation in Russian news and so on, and how some actually can quit Russian news, I wanted to take a little bit of a look at Ekaterina Andreeva and her insanity. Because apparently when you happen to be a TV host who is just one of the most privileged people in a system where there's no meritocracy or whatsoever, where you sold your soul to have the position that you are in essentially, right? It turns out that if you stay in that position for 27 years, you tend to go a little bit insane, just like, you know, you tend to go a little bit insane if you stay a president of a country for 30 years straight. Ekaterina Andreeva, apart from being just a propagandist, she's also very esoteric, and she finds new esoteric ways to describe and explain to Russians why they need to live in a dictatorship. So let's check it out, shall we?
Боже мой, кому я могла прийти в такую жару? В костюме! Ну, конечно, Катя Андреевой, которая ждет меня под своей работой, я бы сказала. И мы изображаем, что только что встретились.
Seeing these people makes me want to nuke Moscow, like, real as fuck, like, honestly. So, essentially this right here is an interview that is pretty recent, 3 months ago. This was kind of a controversy in Russia this summer, but I didn't really talk about it. Now I want to. An interview came out with Ekaterina Andreeva from Svetlana Bondarchuk. She's like also like a Moscow fucking socialite, you know what I'm saying? She's the wife of like one of the biggest Russian film directors and everything, who also sucks ass. Essentially, yes, like these are the worst Muscovites, you know. These people, in my opinion, should have coming to them what the kulaks had coming to them. Except these people, for these people, it's actually gonna be justified. Like these people need to be. God, I fucking hate these Muscovite socialites, like Kremlin as sellouts. Oh my god, there are no worse people on the fucking face of earth. Maybe Netanyahu, but yeah. Maybe he's worse. But anyway, I want to actually show you a particular clip from this interview where she talks a little bit about her work on Russian TV and about Vladimir Putin.
Я не окрашиваю политические новости никаким образом. Это четкая информация и все.
А с кем ты из больших политиков была знакома, ну, мировых?
Ну, соответственно, наши все: Горбачев, Ельцин, Путин, Берлускони, кардинал Ратцингер.
Yeah, she knew Berlusconi. You probably know what I'm thinking of, guys, right now. You probably know. Putin and Berlusconi were best buds for a while, and Berlusconi is known for his love of women. So, you know, I'm just having some ideas right now why Ekaterina Andreeva has been able to stay for so long on Russian TV as an anchor. You know what I'm saying? No, this is not misogyny, by the way. This is like Russian realism.
Что их объединяет? Почему они такие большие? Вот как? Потому что руководить такой огромной страной, это надо иметь какие-то определенные качества, которые должны быть у каждого из них.
Я не изучала всех их, кроме Владимира Владимировича Путина. Мне это было интересно. У него есть на руке символ власти.
У меня нет?
Нет.
У меня нет!
Если он есть, то...
А у тебя есть?
Не скажу.
Есть.
То это говорит о том, что у человека есть все данные для того, чтобы занять высокие посты. И вот, собственно, в случае с ним это и произошло. А плюс его лицо очень интересным образом переходит из века в век. Не знаю, как к этому относиться, но картина семейства Арнольфини, Ванейка, которая написана там в 1400 каком-то году, да, если ее посмотреть, то там прям четко ты понимаешь, что это герцог Арнольфини очень похож на нашего Владимира Владимировича. Чем знаменит герцог Арнольфини? Он собиратель итальянских земель. Каким-то образом, да, из того прошлого времени сюда, в нашу Россию, передано некое послание, да, где можно понять, и он об этом знает, потому что вот мы с ним это обсуждали, что его задача, которую он сам себе поставил, она правильная.
Сохранить.
Да, и приумножить, вернуть.
Fucking idiots. Is commentary needed? I mean, we just need a little bit of time to process that once again. So let me just repeat. Yes, once again, according to the main host of Russian TV, Russian news, for the past 30 years, basically, right? The main anchor woman of Russian news, the face of Russian propaganda, says that Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, has a special mark on his hand, which is called the mark of power, or the mark of political power, which, once again, is a mark that is given to certain people that she would not let us know, by the way, what it looks like. It's like the same shit that Harry Potter has, you know, on his forehead, probably, or whatever. I think it's a Nazi tattoo, probably, that Vladimir Putin has. That's the most likely, according to his ideology, at least, you know, how he loves Ivan Ilyin and all those fucking Russian philosophers, and Dugin, and so on. But yes, according to Ekaterina Andreeva, Vladimir Putin has a certain mark on his hand that is given by God, I guess, that shows that he was sent on this earth to rule. So once again, that's normal. That is not at all similar to Tsarist Russia, you know? And how in those times, you know, people thought that all the power and, you know, comes from God. So the Tsar is essentially the right hand of God on earth. Not the same at all. Normal country, once again, this is a normal country with a normal president and a normal ideology. But also, Ekaterina Andreeva claims that Vladimir Putin does not only have that mark, but that he is also a kind of a person who appears in time again and again through generations to essentially be that kind of powerful person with power. And this is proven by Van Eyck's paintings. Let's check it out, guys. So here we have the painting in question, and this chap here is supposed to be, I guess, the Italian version of Vladimir Putin from the past. And again, she compares Vladimir Putin to Giovanni Arnolfini, who was a guy that she claims was the gatherer of Italian lands. And essentially, once again, the claim is that he looks like Vladimir Putin. And since this guy was like a gatherer and conqueror, or whatever, according to her at least, of Italian lands, I don't know shit about Italian history, you guys, in the comments tell me if this is true or not, but she's drawing the historical parallel and saying that Vladimir Putin is the gatherer of Russian lands, meaning that Vladimir Putin's fucking mission on this earth is essentially to annex Ukraine, Crimea, and so on, and, gather Russian lands, and I guess restore the Russian Empire. I guess that's essentially what she's saying. That is Vladimir Putin's job, and you Russians, who might have other ideas of how the country should go, or whatever, you guys just need to shut up, because, again, Vladimir Putin was sent to us from the fucking heavens. He has that swastika on his hand or whatever. You can also see him on old paintings. That means that he just was made to be in this position. So, like, shut up and obey, please. And please let me, washed up old hag. I'm sorry, once again, I fucking hate her. All of this, esoteric, mystical bullshit. That is the reason why a senile midget has to be a president of your country. And that is also the justification for me and dried up hag, who once again should not be the face of any news anymore, who's insane. That is the reason why I stay in my position for 27 years. It's simply mysticism, and the best part is that Ekaterina Andreeva has discussed all of this with Vladimir Putin, and he actually agrees. Now that's the best part right there. He agrees with all of that.
И он об этом знает, потому что вот мы с ним это обсуждали.
So essentially, yes, you have an insane system of yes men and old sellout pieces of shit that are keeping each other in power, this gerontocracy and corruption, and they're zombifying everybody with these, insane esoteric myths or whatever. I love it. I love my country, guys. I love having been born in the same country with these people. And once again, I love the fact that Vladimir Putin himself agrees with this idea, and he does actually think that he also has a mark of power in his hand. He essentially thinks he has God's approval to do what he does. You guys don't even understand, like, the insanity of the people that we're dealing with here. And I mean, this, yeah, he kind of looks like Putin, but, there's a lot of things in nature that look like Putin. Let me do the most basic Google search, okay? Okay, there we go. I just Googled baboon, small baboon. There you go, guys. Once again, is this a sign from the fucking gods? Because, I don't know, guys. I mean, the resemblance is kind of uncanny, once again. And I've always thought that my entire life too, looking at monkeys, like they look too much like Vladimir Putin. And some people might say, Roman, you're being ridiculous, but tell me this motherfucker does not look like Vladimir Putin. He absolutely does, especially like younger Putin specifically, I mean, look at this once again. He's just got that look. And I'm not even trying to be like edgy right now and say that Putin is like not human or whatever. All I'm saying is they look the same. That's definitely a fucking a resemblance to be seen, okay? What does that mean? I don't know. We need to ask Ekaterina Andreeva because maybe she will be able to solve this riddle. And also, just to end on a funny note, I'd like to show you one more clip from this interview, which I just think is interesting and sort of ironic given the current times of Russia. A bit about Ekaterina's past.
А ты же, по-моему, как раз в институте писала работу, да, про Сталина?
Ну, я писала работу не про это, до этого мой мозг не дошел, как у него, но я писала просто про схожесть в чем-то режимов Сталина и Гитлера, да, и одинаковые песни, много тем по армии, там еще. Потом у меня бабушка работала в Ленинской библиотеке, и я, в общем, имела доступ к секретным архивам и книгам. Ребенку 10 лет, кто будет следить, куда он пошел в этой библиотеке.
One of the interesting parts of Ekaterina's biography, in my opinion, is that when she was finishing university, she wrote her graduation thesis on the similarities of the regimes of Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler. Essentially talking about the similarity between, the cult of personality and, fascism in 1930s Germany and comparing that to the cult of personality of Stalin and so on. And essentially what was going on in the USSR in the 1930s. And surprise, surprise, she found a lot of correlations, right? However, the funniest thing by far is that, she would not be able to write that today if she was a young, 20-year-old student today, because Russia currently literally has a law that was passed a few years ago. The law is called Оправдание нацизма, or Advocation of Nazism. This law is kind of an anti-Nazi law in Russia. Essentially you could get jailed if you show a swastika or something, or some imagery of Nazi Germany, potentially. That's already happened for people for no reason too. A lot of people are getting jailed for this felony for absolutely zero reasons. People who are not Nazis are getting jailed for advocating for Nazism, right? But also, one of the ways to get yourself in prison in Russia for this felony is actually to compare Stalin and Hitler. Right now, essentially in Russia, if you claim that there was any similarity or any parallels between the regimes of Stalin and Hitler and overall between Soviet Union and Nazi Germany, you could actually be trialed for, once again, this incredible new law, this incredible felony of rehabilitating or advocating for Nazism. So, essentially any critical view of the Stalin period and so on, and comparing that to, you know, other funny countries of the same time in the world, it's literally a thought experiment that is not allowed in Russia. And essentially, in modern Russia, not the Russia that she lived in when she was 20 years old, you cannot write such a thesis. However, Ekaterina Andreeva, once again, the biggest supporter of Vladimir Putin and Russia's policy and Vladimir Putin's ideology and everything, she thinks it's fine. She doesn't care, because once again, she's a grifter, a deeply egotistical person who doesn't care that the rights of young people in Russia are quelled these days. She doesn't care that young people don't get to talk about the things they want to talk about and things they want to explore and discuss. No, she doesn't care, because she got to do it like 40 years ago, so now she's in a different position of power. She's making fucking billions. She's a Moscow socialite, she's enjoying that life. She does not care for the average, you know, Russian person or the Russian youth today. So, again, I find it absolutely hilarious that Ekaterina Andreeva writing a thesis on comparing Stalin to Hitler. She had nothing happen to her and she managed to, you know, become a part of the system essentially. But young people these days cannot write about something like that because there's a threat of jail for doing that. So, again, I can totally see that Ekaterina Andreeva is a good person who deeply cares about Russia and freedom of speech and everything like that. She's definitely not in it for the grifts and to be able to tell Vladimir Putin that he has a mark of power in his head or some bullshit. Oh my god. Yeah guys, I mean, that is pretty much all I wanted to say in this video. I didn't want to give you like a whole biography of this person. I just wanted to show you a little piece, a little example of the insanity of Russia's biggest news anchor. And again guys, she's essentially Putin number 2. She's been on TV for 30 years now, and you can only imagine how terrible and how awful the environment there is if these are the people who get to be on top for so long. But yeah guys, I guess that is gonna be pretty much it for today's video. Russian TV is absolutely horrible and it's only gonna continue to get worse. If you guys enjoyed this video, please make sure to slap the like on it, and also, if you guys do like what I do on this channel, if you would like to support me additionally, and that is financially, then go over to the link down in the description and become a YouTube member. It's basically like YouTube's own version of Patreon. It's the best way to support me, or you could also leave a super thanks underneath this video. But yeah guys, thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.